All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So we're going to try to run through this very fast. And then when it's over, just for the sake of time for everyone else, because there's a lot we have to cover, if you have questions, there'll still be people, April and Wendy will be notarizing forms probably even as we're finished. Just come see us individually and we'll try to answer those questions on a one-to-one basis. We didn't want to try to answer a bunch as a crowd because some people may not have the same question and then they want to go ahead and head out to lunch. So we have a lot of information to cover, so we want to make sure that you do that. There are two forms that have to be notarized. Will's going to go over them in just 1 second, but I want to go ahead and let you know what they are. That way, while we're meeting and going through this stuff, if you want to go ahead and fill those two out first, and you can go line up and start getting your forms notarized before you leave, that would save you a lot of time. It is the camp participant form, which is the very first page, as well as there's one that says, let me get it, the Ridgecrest Conference Center Challenge Course Team Building Participant Form, that one as well. Both of those have to be notarized. That's like the 5th or 6th page. The one that says Ridgecrest Conference Center, it says Challenge Course Team Building at the top. And the very first one on the page, the Fuge Camps Participant Form, both those have to be notarized. So if you want to go ahead and start filling those out, and if you come up, as we said earlier, bring a driver's license, because April and Wendy do not know everybody in the room, and they have to legally identify you before they can notarize your form. And so as we're doing that, if you want to line up, once you get them filled out, that's okay, and that'll save you some time. If you don't know me, my name is Jeff Tapp. I'm the pastor of students here at Chet's. And so I've always enjoyed loving working with the students. Been here for 7.5 years. And to my right is Will Dunlap. He's our social student minister, and he also works with our middle school students here at the Hodges campus. And so Will's going to jump through and really quickly go through the forms on this in this packet really fast, and then we'll continue on with a bunch of other information you need to know for camp.
All right, so the first little part that we're going to cover is forms, all right? So you should have those in your hand. There is 7 forms total, okay? 7, all right? I know you're probably thinking, bro, that's a lot. Yes, that is a lot. So 7 forms total, and here's the thing. If you've already filled out the Fuse participant form, the first form in that packet, if you've already filled that out, you're going to need to refill that out because Fuge sent us a new one within the past month. And so you're going to have to refill that out and resubmit that. Second form that you'll need is insurance cards. All right, insurance cards. The easiest way to do this is to take a pic of the front and back. All right, front and back. Email them to michelle@chetscreek.com. Okay, michelle@chetscreek.com. They're right there. So front and back, or if you have like a scanner app and you put it all on one page, I'm sure that'll help Michelle tremendously instead of sending like 2 attachments. So if you can put it on one page, that would be awesome. The third form is the no insurance responsibility letter. Okay, this one's important because in the unfortunate event that we do have to take your kid to the hospital, hopefully not, but it has happened. If we have to take your kid to the hospital and you don't have insurance, this just kind of gives us liability freedom to
and you can ignore this form if you have an insurance card.
Yes, if you have an insurance.
That one's trash.
Yeah. All right, the next form is the Chet's COVID liability waiver. All right, so this must be signed or you cannot go to camp. All right, you cannot go to camp if this form is not signed. This is important because it releases us from any liability if your kid gets COVID at camp. It's just kind of assumed. All right.
And we have to have a witness sign that. So if you want to turn to the person to your right and left, there's an adult over the age of 18 to witness. Just someone around you has to witness that to sign it. So it can be anybody in this room that you want. Doesn't have to be someone that you know personally.
Cool. All right. So the next form. Sorry, I'm just flying through these forms, but the next form is the Chet's medical release form. This also must be signed, or you cannot go to camp. This is again, if you're a kid, if you have to take your kid to the hospital or anything like that at camp, this gives us the go ahead to do that. Okay, and it looks like that. All right, and then the next one is the Ridgecrest Conference Center COVID release waiver. All right, so you're probably thinking, man, there's 2 COVID release waivers. Yes. All right. So Ridgecrest is no longer owned by Lifeway. Lifeway sold it to a group of investors, and so So they have their separate COVID liability form. So you have to fill out 2 COVID release waivers. It's just the day and age we're in, all right? The last form that you have to fill out is the Ridgecrest Conference Center recreation waiver. Looks like that. All right, so it's got to be signed and notarized, or again, you cannot go to camp. So the theme with all these forms, if they're not signed, you can't go to camp. All right, so make sure you sign those.
Yes, we need all of them, every single form. And if you can fill them out today and turn them in, that would be super beneficial, because we will go ahead and upload them to your Focus website instead of you having to do that. So we have to have, even though we have a digital copy of the forms on the Focus website, we have to have a physical copy of every form, because certain hospitals, certain places will require us a physical copy with the original notarized copy for medical release and things like that. So we have to have those before you leave today. Just so you know, the recreation form, your child may not get the ropes course or kayaking or anything like that, but they're requiring every participant to fill that out in case that's one of the track times that your student gets. All right, so the next thing is the online travel form. This is only if you are bringing your student to camp yourself, or if you're picking them up early because of vacation or travel ball or whatever. We'll need you to go online to this website at chetsus.com/camp travel and fill that out so we know times and dates. Please understand, just because you fill it out, it doesn't mean that that's a guarantee that we're going to meet you to get your kid or drop your kid off at that time. We have to look at the camp schedule and make sure that we can be available, or have an adult available to meet you, to pick up your kid, or for you to drop off your kid late or whatever. Keep in mind, we're taking 200 plus people to camp, and we're on the side of a mountain, a conference center, and so be flexible with us. If you're like, hey, I got to get there at 9:30 at night, well, we may be in the middle of a group session, and you may have to wait, 40 to 35 minutes or an hour until we get out. So we need to know the exact times that you think you're going to be there. So figure that out and put that in on the camp travel form. The other thing is, this year traveling to camp, we normally stop off in Columbia, South Carolina for lunch on the way there, and on the way back, we stop off at the Columbiana Mall. But in order to just reduce exposure for the potential of getting COVID in a mall or roaming a mall, what we're going to do this year is we're going to ask you to bring $10, $5 on the way down there, $5 on the way back. We're going to purchase meals on the way there and the way back and give them to students who are going to pull off at kind of like a truck stop station on the way there, and we'll have a group that's already picked up the meals for us and serve the students on the bus, and then eat them quickly and then head to camp in the same way on the way home. So we're taking a loss on those meals. So just be aware, when we say bring $10, we're not trying to ask for way more money. We know if you went to the mall, your kid's going to spend 10 to 12 bucks on Chinese food or whatever's at the Columbiana Mall, Chick-fil-A and stuff. So, but on Sunday, Chick-fil-A is not open, so we will not have Chick-fil-A on the way to camp. Just so you know that. So it's Sunday, we're leaving, and Chick-fil-A is not open. So, but we're going to pre-order those meals. What we will do is, if you'll notice, and we'll talk about at the end, our final camp meeting is June the 27th. That's where we give you all the details of making sure where to be, all the camp policies as far as like what track times are there and all that stuff. We ask you to bring that money between now and then, preferably on that meeting date, so we can check off everybody's name, and then we're going to pre-order the meals, and we'll just deposit that into an account to pay for that. So make sure you do that. The last form, this is only if you're an adult that's going with us to camp. If you served in kids or student ministry in the last 3 years, then your background check is probably still good, but we have to get a new one every 3 years, I think. And so if you're an adult going with us to camp, just fill that out really quick just to make sure we have to do that, and we have to notify Lifeway that we've done that. Now, here's the really important stuff. Turn to the next page, which is the camp COVID policies and procedures that Fuge Camp has sent to us. Be aware this is the latest update, which I think is like May the 7th is when they sent us an update. They may send us another update in early June. We don't know. So if things change in the environment, if things change for the locations and stuff, there could be a different update, but just in case, we don't know. So here's a couple things I just want to stress, and I want to try to explain some of it, and then it's probably going to be a little bit confusing for some of you guys. If you have questions afterwards, we'll try to answer as best as possible. The first thing is, you got to wear face coverings inside. You're going to have to wear a mask. Your students are going to need to bring masks to camp. So during worship, inside the buildings, wherever we go, you'll wear a face covering inside, except in your cabin. You don't have to wear them in your personal space in the cabins. What they're saying now with the latest update is that masks will not be required outside unless it's required by the local guidelines. As far as we know right now, at Ridgecrest, North Carolina, it is not required to wear a mask outside. So that's what we know now. Things can change. A couple things that we're going to do every day that Fuge requires of us to do. We're going to do temperature checks every single morning before they leave their cabin, and we'll do what we call a health assessment, which is basically, hey, do you have a fever? You know, we'll do the temperature check for fever, but do you have any loss of taste, loss of smell, any of that kind of stuff? We'll just assess the student really quickly before they leave the cabin. Something new this year, if you wanted to come visit your kid at camp, you cannot. Outside visitors are not allowed this year, just to reduce possible exposure. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to explain this in a little bit more detail in just a few minutes as we go through this package. If a student has some symptoms while they're at camp and we go find a rapid test facility and we get them tested positive, they're going to provide us what they call a quarantining room that we'll put students in until time that they can be picked up from camp. If the test is negative, they can return back to camp unless they have something that's a contagious illness like strep or the flu or something like that. There's a couple exceptions to that, being vaccinated and having COVID within the last 3 months, and we'll talk a little bit more of that in detail in just one second. Here's what this means. If a student develops symptoms, it's on page 2 there listed of the COVID policy for camp, what we're going to do is we're going to identify a rapid test place facility that we can go get them tested. We're not identifying a place right now because between now and July 4th, that facility may no longer be working. So we'll find out as we get closer to camp where there could be a rapid test facility near Ridgecrest. It's a possibility. It's in Asheville, which is about 25 minutes away. But we'll find that out. If they do happen to have some sort of symptoms, we will take them to get tested, and we'll try to find out the positive or negative part of the test. If your student has symptoms, loss of taste, smell, whatever, fever, and they refuse to get tested, they will immediately have to go home. So if you're one of those families like, hey, I don't want anybody testing my kid, I fully understand that. Just understand that's the policy of Fuge camps. If they don't want to be tested, they have to go home. We'll put them in a quarantine room, and you as a parent can come pick them up. Now, here's how this is going to work, and this is where it gets a little confusing in some sense. If a student develops any type of symptoms on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or early Wednesday, and we go get them tested and they come back positive, you as a parent will need to drive up to Ridgecrest and pick them up. We will put them in a quarantine room. They're not going to be by themselves. We'll have an adult with them. We have adults that are going with us that are vaccinated, and so we'll make sure that they're taken care of, we'll make sure they get fed and all those things. But you will have to come pick them up. Now, if for some reason they develop a symptom and we get them tested late Wednesday afternoon after 3 p.m., what we're going to do, it doesn't do you any good to drive the 7 hours up to pick your kid up on Thursday because we're leaving at 11 o'clock on Thursday morning. We will quarantine the student that evening, and then we will have a separate van for any students that have developed symptoms or anything that have possibly tested positive. We have a vaccinated adult that's going to drive that van home, so it'll be a separate van. So they won't have the bus experience on the way home after camp, but that's what we'll do, because there's really no reason for us to say, hey parent, come pick your kid up on Thursday. We leave at 11, and then you sit around for 4 hours waiting for you guys to get there, you know, and we don't want to ask you to leave at like 3 o'clock in the morning. That's kind of weird. So that's the plan as it is now. Our prayer and our hope, and we're crossing our fingers, legs, toes, and anything else that we can cross and pray, is that no one will develop symptoms while they're at camp. And we hope that happens. We hope no one has any kind of symptoms and becomes positive while they're at camp. We're hoping this thing is still on a downward trend, and that's going to be the case. Here's what we know, parents. Every kid goes to camp. Every kid stays up too late. Every kid goes in and out of air conditioning. Ridgecrest, we leave here, it's 97 degrees in July. We get to Ridgecrest, and it's like 79 or 80, and there's a temperature change. In and out, they're screaming, they're yelling, they're singing. They will have a tendency to get sinus stuff and sore throats, things and stuff like that. We're going to monitor that, and we're going to watch that well, but we're going to look for main symptoms of COVID, and we're going to go get them tested. And so there's a very strong possibility that a student or a few students by Wednesday will have to go get tested. Because on Wednesday, kids just are exhausted and they're tired, and people come home from camp sick. It just happens. So we're hoping that that will not be a COVID thing. We're hoping that it will be just, hey, we have to take you, we have to get you have a fever, whatever, and everything will be fine. But that is just what's happening. Now, here is the exception that Fuge Camp has told us. Well, first, if you do have to come pick your kid up, we are so sorry. It will be at your expense to drive up and get your kid, so just be aware of that. We just have to say that and let you know. If a student has what they call significant exposure to someone who's tested positive, this is an important thing to know. That means significant exposure means being in the same cabin as some student that tested positive. So if a student in our group happens to have symptoms and test positive while they're at camp, then that means this, and this is the bad news. Every person in their cabin must go home, except if they have already had COVID in the last 3 months and recovered, or they've been vaccinated within the 2-week time before camp. I didn't make this policy up, so please don't throw scissors and pins and cans and Bibles and everything else at me. This is the worst news that I felt like we ever had to share with people. We're not telling you to go get your kid vaccinated, all right? If you do want to do that, the suggestion is if it's a 2-shot vaccine, you would need to do it next week to give yourself the time to have the other 2 weeks before the second shot and then 2 weeks prior to camp. If it's the 1-shot vaccine, the Johnson & Johnson, then you would just need to have that before 2 weeks prior to camp. Here's the thing. If your kid is in a cabin and someone does happen to have symptoms and have a positive test result, you will need to have documentation that shows that you have either recovered from COVID in the last 3 months with a date on it, and that can be a test result that you have that show that you were positive a month ago, and that would show that you had it and you recovered before camp, or a vaccine card, and then your kid would be able to stay. I just want to share that because that's the toughest part about letting you know that. You just have to have the documentation. They will ask us for that, to show that, because they want to prevent any of it from spreading if someone was positive. We have to understand this: if a student is positive because they have symptoms, they get tested, it doesn't just affect us as a church group, it affects their staff that has to do camp for several more weeks afterwards. So they also have exposure to students based on their Bible study groups, things like that. Hopefully everything will be outside Bible study wise, and so they shouldn't have significant exposure. But the same thing goes for their staff. If they have a staff member that tests positive, they have to leave. And so they're having to prepare for extra staff at the camp. There's all sorts of contingencies that they're having to worry about. So does that make sense? Everybody understand? If you have questions about that, please see me afterwards, and we'll try to answer them as best that we can. The last little form is the very last page on your packet. It's the health questionnaire form. Do not fill that out today. That you will bring with you to camp the first day we leave, and that is the form that you will fill out that says, have you been in contact with anyone that tested positive 2 weeks prior to camp, or are you having any of these symptoms? Now, A, don't lie to us about it, because we need to know we're riding on a bus for 7 hours. But B, if you were to say yes on any of those questions on that form, you will not be allowed to go to camp. So just be aware of that. That's important to know. Now we're going to talk about the deadlines, payments, and all that stuff.
All right, cool. So all final balances, if you still have a balance due, it's due June the 9th, okay? June the 9th. That's like less than a month away, all right? So June the 9th, if you still have a balance. So if you heard like everything Jeff said, you're like, bro, I don't know, I want to cancel camp. I want to like cancel my kids' camp. I don't want them to go to camp. Here's what we can do on that, okay? You can cancel your camp in writing by emailing Michelle at Chet's Creek. If you haven't noticed, Michelle is like a rock star on our team. She does everything. So you can email Michelle at Chet's Creek, including your campus and your kid's name. Okay, so if you're like I don't want to have to go up there if my kid gets COVID or whatever, and you want to cancel, you can cancel by emailing Michelle. Okay, you will lose your $60 deposit, but any remaining balance will be refunded as well. Okay, so make sure you note that. And then you can also cancel. So this is important too. So if you do want to cancel, you can cancel from today up until June 9th, okay? After June 9th, there's no refunds, okay? So, all refunds are non-refundable after June 9th because we've already paid a lot of into Fuge, and so it's just kind of puts us in a weird spot, okay? So, and then if you cancel after June 9th, I'm going to read this word for it because I don't want to mess this up, all right? If you cancel after June 9th or fail to tell us you want to cancel and you still owe a balance, you'll be sent an invoice for your remaining balance. Okay, so if your kid just doesn't show up when the buses leave because you didn't want them to go, you'll still be charged for that week at camp. Okay, so easiest thing to do, just email Michelle before June 9th, and then that way we can get that covered for you.
And please know, we're not trying to be mean about that. It's just we've already sent the money off to Fuge Camp, which will be non-refundable to us. And so please, if you decide, we want you to go ahead and fill out the forms. But if you go home and you think about this, you're like, hey, I don't want to run this risk or whatever, we will not have hard feelings if you cancel camp. But we need to know before the 9th because that's when we will be sending funds off to Fuge Camp. Now, let me talk about COVID-related cancellations, and then we're going to hit the website, and then we'll be finished and get you guys out of here and go to lunch. If your student tests positive in the 2 weeks prior to camp, so over the next month, right up you come to camp, they test positive, and you can show proof of that with a test result with dates, you will be given a full refund from Centrifuge. So what they'll do, we will notify them, we will send them your proof of a test, and then they will send us back the refund, and then we at Chats will send you a refund for your camp. So if for some reason COVID happens before you get to camp in those 2 weeks, that can be given a refund, but you have to show a positive test. Now, if you answer yes on the health questionnaire the day we leave to camp because your kid has a symptom or they were exposed to someone to camp and you have to stay home, and then you test positive that week while we're at camp, Centrifuge will also give you a refund if you can show us proof with dates. So we want you to know that. So if for some reason you are exposed to a friend's parent because you hung out at their house and then you're like, oh man, they get tested positive, I can't go to camp, let us know. And then if you get tested that week and you turn out positive, Centrifuge will refund your money. And the same thing, they'll send it to us. Now, if you answered yes on the health questionnaire form and that week of camp you do not test positive, you will not receive a refund from Centrifuge. So just make sure that you understand that for Fuge Camps. Now, if a student is at camp and they develop symptoms and they test positive during camp and has to be sent home per the COVID-19 guide that Fuge has, here's what you have to understand. And this is for any student that tests positive or happens to be in close contact, i.e. you're in the cabin with someone that tests positive. I'm going to read this straight from their website. We apologize that partial refunds cannot be given if participants don't complete the week of camp. And this is because they've already hired staff, they've already acquired facilities and paid for all these things. So this is the reason why we want you to know if for some reason you decide you want to back out of camp, you have until June 9th, because here's the risk that everybody takes that you need to understand. When we go to camp, if your kid is in a cabin with someone and that kid tests positive because they have symptoms and they test positive and every kid in that cabin has to go home, Fuge will not give you a refund. So please understand that. Once you're on the campgrounds, once you leave to go to camp, everything's non-refundable by them because they've already paid for the staff to be there for that particular camp for that week and the facilities that they've acquired. So just be aware of that. I will answer any question I can try to answer about that afterwards. And so really quick, we're going to hit the website and then the last little bit, and then we'll get you guys out of here.
All right. So if you're sitting there like, bro, why are they doing this? My email is jeff@chatscreek.com, and feel free to. Just kidding. So last thing, and we're done. Focus website. Okay. Today is your one-stop shop. You can turn in all forms a day. We will upload those to your Focus account for you. Okay. So if you can have them notarized, you can have them signed, all today, That way you don't have to worry about it later on. And then we'll upload it for you to your account, okay? And here's a reminder, we need paper copies of every single form, okay? We need paper copies of every single form, again, because if we take your kid to the hospital, we have to be able to pull that out and show that to the hospital as well, okay? We also have them uploaded in a digital form to have as a backup, all right? So to get to your Focus website, you go to ChestCreek.com or Chest Creek Church, Chest Creek Church.focusmissions.com. Find your account, okay? Find your account. Check your balance. You can pay off your balance. You can do all sorts of things on that Focus website. If somebody else wants to donate to your kids' camp, they can donate through via this website as well. Okay, so and then you can also on this website it has a checklist of all your documents. So if you're missing a COVID form, if you haven't signed that off yet, if you're like, I don't know if I put that in there, you can. There's a checklist on there that you can see if we've got it or not. So.
And if you fill out all those forms this week, today, and you turn them in, bear with us. Give us about a week or so, because it's going to take Michelle quite a while to get everybody's forms uploaded into their individual accounts. And so make sure you do that. If you want to upload your insurance cards, you can do that, but we recommend taking a picture and emailing them to Michelle, and she can get them uploaded for you. Last little thing, and then we'll get you guys out of here, and you can come catch us for questions if you need. Our next camp meeting is June the 27th. This is important. This is where we're going to go over track times, all the different, hey, this is what time you need to be here for pickup and load in for the buses. All of that information is going to be on the 27th of June, so mark your calendar. Make sure that you have that. And before you leave today, with exception to the very last page, the health questionnaire, we ask you to turn in all of those forms signed and filled out before you leave out here today. And so for the sake of everyone's time, we'll answer questions individually one-on-one. We're going to send out an email this week that will have everything that we covered, even this meeting on video, if you want to go back and watch it again. Or if someone missed it, or if you have a friend, hey, I missed the meeting this Sunday morning, we'll have that information. We'll have the packet that we sent out, all those things that you can take home and print out and bring into the office yourself. But thank you guys for staying after church for almost 30 minutes to cover all of this stuff. I know it's a lot of information. We're sorry. This is the world we live in this moment. But if you have questions, feel free to come up to us. And if you have forms to be notarized, just see Wendy or April up here. And then as soon as you're done with that, you can turn your forms in. If you want to turn your forms in, we have these altars here now. So if you don't mind bringing them up to Michelle, right over here to the left, and hand them to her, and she will collect those for you. Please don't hate us, as after we collect these thousands of forms, if one form accidentally comes up missing, we may have to email you and say, hey, we're so sorry, we lost this form or whatever, do you mind filling it out really quick, and we'll email it to you, and you can scan it and send it back to us. But that could happen, so we're human, so that might possibly happen. Thank you guys. If you have questions, come see us. If you need to get a form notarized, feel free to see April and Michelle, and we'll answer whatever question that we can. Have a good afternoon.